Okay, so today we're going to look at setting up flights for flying a guest of a member and also for flying a passenger or a mutual two-seater flight. And I'll give brief explanations for the benefit of new members just before we start each exercise. Before I do that, I'd just like to very quickly show everybody a change I've had to make to the menu structure because the menus were getting just a little bit too long. And in relation to the creation of flights, most of the flights, well, all of the flights now are under a separate submenu. If I click on create flights, it quickly brings up a submenu where we can then create instructional flights, solo flights, flights for guest and members, and mutual or passenger flights. To go back to the main list, if you are on a PC, you can click the back button. If you're on a tablet, you can use your finger and just wipe left to right, and the original menu comes back in place. So just to repeat that, click on it to bring up the sub menu, wipe left to right, or click the back button to go back to the main menu. Okay, so we're actually going to go into create flights because I'm going to set up a flight for a guest of a member. Just before I do that, for the benefit of new members, there has been a problem in the past where the poor old instructor on the flights has been charged for the flight, which, whilst it may be true, almost invariably isn't. And the reason is quite simple. Let's imagine that I bring a family friend or just a guest to the club, and I want them to fly, and that will mean I don't want them to pay £65 for a trial lesson. I will let them fly on my account. So they are my guest. I am not an instructor. I am not allowed to fly them. So one of our instructors will fly them round, but I will be charged for the flight. So that will be the first question you get asked, and the first piece of information you need to find out is, who is this person who is about to fly a guest of? Once we're armed with that information, then we can get it first time and every time. So in order to do that, I click on flight for a member's guest. A brief explanation pops up, which is essentially what I've just been talking about. I click on OK. I enter the surname of the member who is going to be charged for the flight, which will not necessarily be the instructor. Click OK. Now, if there's more than one in the database, it will bring a list up and allow you to select the correct person. And we click on the line and then click OK. That then brings up the screen to allow us to enter the flight details. I'm going to click on the aircraft and put him in. We'll put him in EBL, and then we select the instructor who's going to fly him, and we'll put him in with David Bailey. Again, no typing required. Yes, there is. I do apologize. Typing required. We need to know the name of the person who is about to fly. So I'll bring down my very good friend John Smith. So now we have captured this guest of member 403. That's me, the instructor, David Bailey, the aircraft, and the name of the guest, the person who is about to fly. Click on create, and that immediately puts them into the waiting to launch list, and from there go back to lessons 1 and 2, and you can see how to handle those. This is the test center. The data in there is out of date, so we just ignore all the medical expiry warnings from that point on. So that's a flight for a member's guest. A mutual or a passenger flight is something just slightly different. There are certain members within the club who, although they are not instructors, are nevertheless authorized by the CFI to fly in a mutual capacity with a fellow member in a two-seater aircraft. These are not instructional flights in the sense that we currently know them. These same people are also authorized to carry passengers, and again, these are not classed as instructional flights. The reason we've now got this type of flight as a separate menu item is because with instructional flights, of course, in the P1 section, only the instructors are loaded in the list ready for you to select. With a mutual or passenger flight, in theory, we can use any two-seater aircraft with any member as in the P1 slot and any member in the P2 slot. That hopefully will change in the future once we get a list from the CFI of who's authorised, but for the moment the theory is that it can be anybody. In practice, don't try it, because of course you'll get your backside kicked by the CFI, because he has a mental list, although we don't have the list actually recorded on the computer system just yet. What that means in practice is when you click on mutual passenger flying, you just need to be a little bit patient and give it about 10 seconds, because it has to load into the P2 and P1 slots, two very large lists. So I would normally give it about 10 seconds, and then we'll be able to start to click in the boxes and get the right people up. So again, it's exactly the same principle as an instructional flight. We select an aircraft and the list for two-seaters will come up. We will then select a P2, and again the entire club active list will come up. And the same will happen in the P1 list. It will be a long list, and you just have to be careful that you make sure you select the right people. Now, the main difference between a mutual flight and an instructional flight is, in the case of mutual flights, it's the P1 who's going to get charged. And that's to avoid, if you want the technical answer, is to avoid any accusations of flying for hire and reward. If it was a pure passenger in the front who was just having a joyride, then we cannot be seen to be taking any money off that person. So the P1 on a mutual flight is the person who is going to get charged. On all other flights, all of the two-seater flights, of course, it's the P2 that gets charged. So that's a brief history of it, a brief description of it. We click on create. That's all you've needed to do. I'm not going to repeat the exercise. If you want to see it again, just replay the video. We will just very quickly show you the wipe back to the main menu, and at that point there's just one other thing I need to show you. I was going to put it in a separate menu item, but you might as well see it now. A separate lesson, I should have said, but you'll notice on the main menu item there is an item called help. If I click on it, it will open up a window, and it will then bring up the playlist of all the lessons that will be in this series for the FreeFlight demos. And I'm showing you this because I've had feedback from somebody who said they didn't know how to watch it on full screen. So you'll notice it's opened a separate tab. We can very quickly go back if we're about to launch an aircraft or one's coming into landing. We can very quickly go back and work the system. But whilst we've got the second tab open, we can actually click on one of the lessons, bring it on the screen, wait for the little YouTube thing to whiz around. And when it starts playing, it's a bit like watching paint dry, this, isn't it? There's a little button off the bottom here. We can just about make it out that says full screen. You click on that, and then voila. And you should be hearing in the background there the commentary to lesson 1. Press your escape key to go back. Close the window down, and you're back ready to start logging flights again or landing aircraft. End of lesson. Thank you for watching. See you all again very, very soon.